Okay, so you can see by having the towel there, shallower angle of attack and a more into-out path with a closed face. That, that face is relative to the path. We want that, that's where the draw occurs. All right guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to dive into a sensitive subject for a lot of you out there. A move within the golf swing that has plagued so many golfers in this game, probably their whole life. Ever since they started playing and maybe developed a few flaws, many of you out there can really resonate with the term coming over the top. And maybe, as Corey mentioned to me actually before we even shot the camera, how does someone even know if they are over the top? Well, we're going to explain that in the video today, and you should be able to identify whether this is something that can help your game. All right, guys, so we're going to tag this as over the top, incorrect. An over the top motion is not necessarily incorrect, right? That's maybe a wrong statement to make, that if you are over the top or have a motion where we are coming down over the swing plane. And that's what it means to be over the top. When we set up to the golf ball, we have this, and it really is an imaginary plane that is drawn sort of up from where the shaft is, and we have this concept, this idealistic view that the club really should stay on this plane, on this angle, as the club moves back and as the club moves down through, right? That's an ideal, scenario. We go back to Hogan's 5 fundamentals of golf, and he talked about the pane of glass, and that was the imagery that he had for himself when he swung the golf club, that he wanted it to be on this particular angle. So when we talk about over the top, we are talking about, at times, the backswing, generally it is not coming up and down over the top. It generally is coming a little bit on the inside. Then as the club reroutes, it then gets above this, again, mythical swing plane that we reference within the golf swing. So some of the things that I see that are maybe the main reasons, the causes for a golfer to come over the top can often be, as we said, club moves too much inside in the takeaway, okay? Club head gets behind the hands early, that way, okay? Very hard for us to kind of continue that swing and then make the correct motion and sort of release it. You kind of run out of room, and you at some point athletically are aware that you don't have enough space, you don't really have enough sort of motion or length of swing in order to create the speed that we want. So we typically would make that compensation that if we get inside early, and we'll talk about that in another video because it is one of my biggest pet peeves of the golf swing. We get inside early, we rotate, we lift, and then we come down over the top. And for those of you who maybe are not that familiar with what your swings look like on video, the divot pattern can often give you the best indication as to what you're doing with the golf club, with the path of your golf club. So where's your divot pointing, right? Is it sort of at the target? Very rarely is it right, but it can be, but rarely. More often than not, it's a little bit left or quite a bit left, and it's quite toe deep, okay? It's not a nice even sort of dollar bill in shape. It tends to be, very deep in that toe side, and is definitely left. And at times in soft conditions, it can even have a little bit of curve to it. So that's one way to identify if you don't have fancy equipment like a GC quad. So you can identify it that way. Another thing to think of, which is, I guess, a little bit more in the sort of the biomechanics of the golf swing, is in an effort to try to create a bigger turn. I think some people, that word turn in the backswing, turn more in the backswing, I've got to turn more, got to, really sort of get behind the golf ball. I think people do that incorrectly a lot of the time. To me, that is a turn, right? So we're going to turn our body. So we just think that, you know, if we're in our posture and we turn, that's the correct thing to do. Well, it's actually not the correct thing to do. When we do that, we often do, or golfers often do, just as I demonstrated there. They will actually, in order to turn, they will lift in what becomes, or what should be, more of a pulling motion in order to create the correct depth to backswing, to create the correct sort of sequence of events and motion. People end up standing up, coming out their posture. So you'll see the head rise up, everything lengthens, and obviously what goes up must come down. So we have the counter move to that. And that combined with the inside takeaway is what leads us to the over the top. Okay, so let's demonstrate a couple like that. And while we're discussing the motion and the mechanics of the over the top, we ultimately want to demonstrate what does the golf ball experience when the golfer is over the top. Because at the end of the day, guys, and I always default back to this thing's impartial. It doesn't care what your swing looks like. You could be, you know, inside and over the top of your backswing plane, but still be from the inside. This thing only cares about the message that it gets in that 10,000th of a second that it gets a chance to be in contact with the club. So let's look at that. Hey guys, I want to take a moment to highlight a fantastic opportunity from our partners here at TPC Toronto. As many of you know, their practice facilities are second to none. From one of the best outdoor ranges in the country to state-of-the-art indoor simulators and world-class instruction led by Braden Kreiderman. They've also recently developed outstanding on-site accommodations to complement their 3 championship courses, creating a true stay-and-play destination. Beginning this fall, they've taken it a step further with a new stay and learn program. This experience combines full-day coaching with Braden, premium accommodations, exceptional dining, and a number of added extras. In my opinion, this is one of the most effective ways to head into the off-season with a clear plan for improvement. You can find all of the details at ospreyvalley.com/academy. As a bonus for our audience, TPC Toronto is offering 15% off simulator rentals, lesson packages, and more. So simply use the code FGI15 when booking online. Now let's get back to the video. So, the player who's over the top generally has curvature to the right. That player also, in order to offset that, generally aims more left. So not only do they have a motion that takes them, if I'm going to set myself up square, okay, and I go inside, up, okay, and I get low point far too far ahead of the golf ball, you can thin it. I'm going to stay square to again. You get a nice strike, but carving to the right, no good. And what that golfer then typically does when they see that carve to the right, because that was a very prominent over-the-top move, but the club path was only half a degree from the inside. But because the golfer has that motion, we compound the error with, or golfers who are over the top compound that error with, well, I'm going to aim left. I'm going to offset this shot. It keeps going right. I'm going to hit it on target. So my, what did that carry? 100 and, where are we? 164. Okay, we're going to offset that. We're going to aim left. We're going to make the same swing. This is going to finish on line, this one. Okay, so the over-the-top golfer says to themselves, aiming left. Okay, so they make a slightly better move at it, right? So for whatever speed they have, they've aimed left, they've kind of brought it back online, 83 miles an hour, not bad. But then the path is now 8 degrees left. So they have a bit of an over-the-top move, but they also have misdiagnosed themselves because they missed it right and think, well, I got to aim more left. Now they're compounding the problem. And this is where the grooving of the poor pattern starts here. The misdiagnosis with the adjustment and the compensation to then compound the problems. So your speed, your energy transfer is really, really poor at that point. Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of the fix. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves this sort of counter problem. So rather than the club coming inside and over the top, we want to make sure that club is certainly coming much more from the inside. So as I said, a pet peeve of mine and the takeaway is this early inside. And it's a pet peeve because I do it. So I'm talking to you guys from experience of what it's like. So, you know, I really work hard at my own swing of trying to make sure that club, when it comes away, that club head is outside my hands at club parallel, okay? In that kind of P2 position, that club parallel position. So when we take that club away, I want you to feel like that club is just slightly pointing out in front of you, somewhere in there. So if we were to, you sort of have this sort of, you know, 180 degree view in front of us. Imagine there's a line coming out, you know, both sides of our hips, okay? We want to keep that club out in front of that line, create that gap there, or maybe have 20 degrees or so of gap there. I don't want to see golfers go early and get that club head in behind early, okay? So from there, we're going to keep that club out in front of the hands in that really, really nice position there. Now, the first move from the top, we've talked about this actually a lot recently on the channel. The first move is towards the target, but not in rotation. When it's in rotation, that's what opens up the chest. That's what gets us steep. Shaft steep, clubs out in front. We kind of have two options. We can keep going, and you're going to have really poor contact from that position, or we can go that way. We can early extend, we can stand up, probably hurt your lower back, and we're going to have some kind of impact position that looks extended, handle up, really, really pretty poor. So we want to make sure that we get that lateral motion, okay? And I actually quite like a little step for those of you who don't really know what it's like to feel lateral motion. So take your width of stance, a little half step in with the lead foot. And if you don't know what it's like to move laterally, this is a good way to learn. So as the club stays outside the hands, make sure you make that little move, okay? That's what gives you the motion that goes, okay, I'm going to move that way first. The add-on to that is I want you to have the feeling that you keep your back to the target for longer. As I said, I don't want people to confuse rotation with, or certainly, we're going to rotate, right? There's no getting away from it. We are going to rotate in the downswing. It's just a case of when. And typically people rush that rotation. So I like to see patience in transition. So if we talk about anything beyond that point in the backswing as the club's moving up, anything beyond here is transition. And on the downswing, anything sort of earlier than here in the downswing is transition. So I want you to feel that you keep your back to the target for longer. Okay, and that's a chippy one. I'd probably say that's maybe 82 miles an hour. It's probably not even at where the average golfer is. But the key here is shot shape. Had a lovely draw to it. We had path 6 degrees. So we had it 8 degrees with the over-the-top swing. Just by shifting, keeping our back to the target for longer, we are going to start to get that path moving right. Obviously easy for me because that is my dominant, that is my more dominant sort of movement pattern, to have a little bit more of that shape. But for those of you who have struggled with the steep kind of fade or steep, you know, slice across it, a shallower angle of attack and a more rightward path, you will start to see that sort of ball speed creep up. Okay, let's kind of start to increase a little bit of speed into the realm of what we spoke about 85, 86 miles an hour. 176, great carry, great efficiency, shallow angle attack. Say goodbye to the deep divots. Say goodbye to the slashing across, the poor contact. Centeredness of contact is key to this whole thing. If we can really get that strike around the middle, that's going to be, you know, a huge asset. Now, I'm not saying you can't hit the middle of the club when you're coming over the top, but when that club is coming from the outside, a lot of the time we are leading in with the heel of the golf club. And it can also cause the dreaded shanks for a lot of golfers who are kind of got the, you know, from the inside, not only have they got the over the top, but they've got the sort of adjustment to make of where their mass is situated. So they go from standing up into the heels, into the rocking forward, and that mass is, you know, really shifting and the movement onto the toes is what creates the club to move further away. When the club moves further away, it kind of gets into that dreaded no-go zone, which is where you deliver the El Hazel to the ball. We don't want that. All right, guys, so now we've got the mechanics of how to stop the over-the-top motion. We're going to move towards building in an incentive. And I always like that sort of way of describing it, because there's intention to do the right thing, and there's an incentive to do the right thing. The incentive is an obstacle or an object in the way of the wrong way of doing it, which in this case is obviously, you know, when you're coming from the outside, coming as we talked about, going that way, you know, when we've got the club swiping across the golf ball, we want to put something in the way so the golfer then understands, yeah, I really don't want to do that. So we're going to take a towel, we're going to fold it in half, okay, and we're going to fold it in half again. And we're just going to roll it up. There's all sorts of obstacles, objects you can use. I've seen people use, you know, their empty bucket on the range. You can use a head cover. I just like a towel because if I hit it, it doesn't matter, right? If I hit this towel and, you know, I maybe make the wrong move a few times, it's not going to make a difference. So I always like for this to sit sort of at this angle here. Okay, so just on the outside of the golf ball and angled ever so slightly to the right. Does a couple of things. It obviously creates a barrier to the over-the-top swing, so that if we kind of make that inside move and come over, boof, right into the towel. The other thing is as well, it gives the eyes a really, really good indication of where it wants this club to move. The eyes will direct the hands, right? Very seldom do you eat your dinner at night and you're picking something off your plate and you look over that way and you just pick the right thing off the plate. We look at it first, we lock in, and then we grab it. So the eyes always lead the hands. So anything that we do, whether you're a darts player, whether you're pitching baseball, you've got to remember that the hands follow the eyes with regards to what to do. So when we set up this, I really like the idea that this kind of like towel setup that we've got here is pointed to the right, and it's illustrating the path that we want to sort of follow. So we set that up there. I don't mind if we actually maybe a good idea. I never really thought of it this way, but good idea to sort of brush it in the backswing. Just give it a little wiggle, right? If you're doing that, then that's the indication that the club's moving sort of slightly more out. But the idea is that on the downswing, we're going to completely miss it. Okay, so you can see by having the towel there, I get a chance to have the same delivery characteristics that I've been striving for: shallower angle of attack and a more into-out path with a closed face. That face is relative to the path. We want that. That's where the draw occurs. If we click on the target, Cody, right, guys, we talked about this in previous videos. Okay, face to target, open. That's how we create a draw. Our face is to the right of the target at impact, but the curvature, so that's the start line launch direction, we get the curvature from the relationship of the face to the path, okay? We done a video about this a while back on how to hit a proper draw. It's not pointing the club face at the target, it's to the right, it has to be to the right of the target. Slight detour there. But you can see what just having a towel, simple, most of us carry a towel on our bag. It doesn't have to be a towel. If you've got something else that you prefer, totally fine. But this is a great object that, again, if I hit it, like the yoga block a few weeks ago, no big deal, no damage done to club or towel. So really, really like this. Corey, if you can, just go up to compare and pull up the comparison between the over the top and the inside move we can. And let's go to club data, because I want to look at what is essentially less energy going in. Our club head speed, just by, I'm trying to make it as relevant to you guys as I can, not me, 83 miles an hour. Okay, so our club path went from out to in, about a 10-degree difference almost, to 6 degrees to the right. Dynamic loft came down 5.4 degrees. It's about a club and a half more energy going into it. Our efficiency was 135, now at 139. We love that. If we go now to ball data, club data. So we look at the carry distance. We picked up at least a full club. We stopped spinning it as high. Someone with a 5-iron at 83 miles an hour is likely to spin it about the mid 4,000s. That would actually be a nice result. Golf ball can, take you a little bit closer to 5,000 if that's what you desire. But we were able to actually create more energy, more ball speed out of over 2 miles an hour less club head speed. Nobody wants this game to get any harder or, make it more difficult. We've just made a way of finding ourselves straighter, further, and more efficient, which is ultimately going to help. Hopefully, there's lots of you out there that maybe feel like we've spoke to you in this particular example. It's probably the largest group of golfers that struggle with anything are the slicers. We've seen that in the club fitting bays over the years, draw bias drivers. No one's really bringing out a driver they call a super fade bias driver. But they do bring out SFTs and Max Ds and all these sorts of things that really are there to help the golfer that has the slice. So there's a whole segment of this market that get golf clubs made for them every year. That's not really the case for the people who are hitting it with a bit more of a draw or even a hook. Yeah, there's adjustability and there's ways in which we can offset that, but it's not the same size of market, which is why we're doing this video today, because we want to talk to as many of you and help as many of you out there as we possibly can. And hopefully this example today can give you some thoughts that realign your movement patterns and get you back on track for the remainder of your golf life. Hopefully that's what's coming for you in your golf future. All right, guys, let us know in the comments below. Does this sound like you? Is this something that you think could really help your game? And as I always say, if you've watched the video and you want to come back and let us know how it worked for you, love that. One of our recent videos we talked about sort of don't turn, push, don't rotate, push. I get so many great comments from people coming back and telling us how that video worked for them once they applied it at the driving range. And all of these little tips are designed for you to take it with you, watch it before you go, set your practice agenda up, and then come back and tell us, give us the feedback, give the other community members the feedback. Did it work for you? And is your game better for it? That's what we want here at the Fraser Golf Institute. All right, stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.